I was stirring a little honey into my tea when the phone rang. It said private number and I almost let it go to voicemail. But something nudged me to pick up. "Miss Hamilton," a man's voice asked. "This is Kyle from Summit Ridge Mortgage. I'm just following up on the missed payment for the 21st Street property." I blinked, totally thrown off. "I'm sorry, what property?" There was a pause on the other end. "The one you're co-listed on," he said, with a. "Vanessa Hamilton." My heart sank. Vanessa. My sister. I pulled the phone away from my ear and quickly checked the call log. The number, the time, it all checked out. This wasn't a scam. "There has to be some mistake," I whispered. "I don't own a home." He rattled off the address again, and the street name jogged something in my memory. That was the townhouse Vanessa had shown off at Thanksgiving, the one she bragged about, saying her boyfriend's uncle helped her get the loan. Kyle kept talking, something about late fees, credit scores, potential risk, but I barely heard him. My hands had gone ice cold. I hadn't signed anything. I hadn't even been there. When the call ended, I just sat there on my couch, staring at nothing, mentally going through every family dinner, every offhand comment. Had I ever agreed to this? No. No way. But then something clicked. Back in March, I'd gone home for Dad's birthday. I remembered leaving my tote bag in the kitchen while helping set the table. Inside it? My tax documents. My signature sheet. They couldn't, but I already knew they had. The next morning, I marched into Summit Ridge Mortgage wearing my work heels and the calmest face I could manage. Behind the front desk's glass partition, a chipper woman named Lacey pulled up the account. "Yep, you're listed as a co-borrower," she said, nodding at the screen. "Signed and dated March 18th. That's your signature, right?" She turned the monitor toward me. There it was, my name, slanted, clean, almost perfect, but not perfect enough. The loop on the Y was curled too high. And they'd left out my middle name. Something I never abbreviate on legal documents. IT was a forgery. A good one. Probably lifted from something else I'd signed. Who knows when. I looked at Lacey. "Can I see the whole file?" She hesitated for a second, then said, "Well, you're on the loan, so yeah." It took 20 minutes and a notepad to untangle the mess. The house was in Vanessa's name, but the mortgage had a cosigner, me. Added later through some extra paperwork. And it had been notarized by someone I'd never even heard of. Reginald Sharp. I snapped a photo of the document, the notary stamp, the date. Then I asked the one question that made my stomach turn: how much is left on the loan? Lacey looked back at the screen. 392. I felt my throat tighten. I walked out of that building in a daze. My name wasn't just scribbled on some paper. It was legally tied to nearly $500,000 of debt. Suddenly, all those sweet family gatherings, the birthdays I'd helped pay for, the guilt trips about not coming home enough. They didn't feel like memories anymore. They felt like setup. I drove straight to my parents' place. Mom was in the front yard trimming her roses, her gloves on, moving like she was in some garden commercial. "Evelyn," she said, clearly surprised. "You should have called first." I didn't smile. "Can we talk?" She led me into the kitchen and poured sweet tea like we were just catching up. I stayed standing. "I know about the mortgage," I said, my voice flat. "I didn't sign anything, but my name's on a loan." She blinked, and then she actually laughed. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, waving a hand. "It's just paperwork." "You're so good with money. You would have helped anyway." My heart was pounding now. "You forged my name." She didn't even try to deny it. Just tilted her head a little and said, "You left those documents out that day." I figured, what's the difference? "You always help the family." That's when Dad walked in, rubbing the back of his neck like he always does when he's uncomfortable. "Your sister needed a hand," he mumbled. "That's all. You make more than she does." I turned to my dad. "What you did is illegal." He couldn't even look me in the eye, and that's when Vanessa came strolling down the stairs, dressed in yoga pants and a full face of makeup, casually sipping on her oat milk latte like she had zero worries in the world. "I thought you said it was cool," she said with this rehearsed little shrug. "Don't tell me you're backing out now." I stared at her. I never told you it was okay. Vanessa just smirked, like we were acting out a scene from her favorite sitcom. Then why are you so easy to take advantage of? Her words hit like ice water. His office was wedged between a dry cleaner and a strip mall nail salon. No glossy signs, just a simple brass plate that read Callaway Legal. Property law. Henry Callaway looked like someone's retired uncle. Rolled-up sleeves, chunky glasses, and a tie that hadn't seen the inside of a GQ issue since the Clinton administration. "Miss Hamilton," he said, motioning for me to come in. "You mentioned your name was added to a mortgage without your consent?" I nodded and slid the paperwork across his desk. He took his time reading everything, humming under his breath like he was working through a Sunday crossword. Then he looked up and said, "You're not the first. But you might be the sharpest one I've seen come in before the house ends up in foreclosure." I didn't say anything. He leaned back in his chair, folded his hands. "So, what is it you want, Ms. Hamilton? Do you want them behind bars? Or do you want control?" I stared at the ceiling for a second, thinking about Vanessa's smug little smirk, my mom's casual shrug, my dad's guilty silence. "Control," I said quietly. Henry gave a knowing smile, not kind, just understanding. "Then we play it smart," he said. "You'll need patience. And records. This isn't about shouting. It's about positioning. You're not after revenge, you're taking back what they build off your back." It was the first time someone had put into words what I hadn't been able to. They hadn't accidentally dragged me into their mess. They'd counted on me not fighting back. Henry slid a legal pad toward me. "Let's start," he said. There weren't any dramatic showdowns. No screaming in the driveway or family group texts blowing up. The plan started with the very thing they used to trap me in the first place, paperwork. Henry filed a quitclaim deed withdrawal to remove me from the liability, but only after we ran a complete title trace, and that's when something interesting turned up. The loan hadn't been sold. The bank still had it on their books. And their patience? Almost gone. Which made them open to negotiation. Step by step, with Henry guiding the process, I opened a private holding trust. We named it Granite Elm LLC. Through it, I made a quiet offer to the bank, pay off the mortgage in full, in cash at a reduced rate. No headlines. No drama. Just closure. 2 weeks later, the bank accepted. Just like that, the debt was mine. But the house? Not officially. Not yet. On paper, Granite Elm LLC was just another faceless investment group, picking up bad loans. As far as my family knew, nothing had changed. But in reality, the trap had already snapped shut. Vanessa had already missed 2 payments. She had no clue the loan had been reassigned. And even less of a clue that her new creditor was me. Henry reviewed the final document and tapped the signature line. "You want to use an alias?" he asked. I shook my head. "No. Let them see it when it counts." Because this time, I wasn't cleaning up their mess. I was laying down consequences. I didn't call. I didn't give a heads up. I didn't send a warning text. I just waited. Vanessa missed a 3rd payment. The grace period expired. And then, quietly, Granite Elm LLC issued a notice of default, with my signature at the bottom. That same week, my mom sent me a text, a picture of some charcuterie board from a wine brunch. "Wish you were here," she wrote. I stared at it for a full minute. The same woman who'd forged my name was now acting like we were besties. I replied with a simple smiley face, then archived the thread, just in case I needed the receipt someday. IT started on a Thursday afternoon. I got a voicemail from Vanessa. No hello, no context, just, "Hey, something's weird with the mortgage company. I think the loan got sold or something. Can you check your side?" I didn't answer. Next came an email from my dad. Awkward. Stiff. Like he was trying to write a message to a store manager. "Evelyn, if you happen to have any information, anything you know about recent changes with the mortgage company would be helpful," the email read. "We're concerned it might affect our refinancing." Our refinancing. I forwarded it to Henry and poured myself a cup of tea. By the time the official notice to cure or vacate hit their mailbox, Mom finally picked up the phone. Her voice was thin, like she'd rehearsed it in the mirror first. We just need a little time, she said quietly. I let the silence hang. Did you need time before forging my name? Or after? She started to cry. I didn't. This isn't personal. Evelyn, she said, her voice cracking. You're still family. No, I said gently but firmly. I'm a creditor now. That weekend, I got an email, this time from Vanessa's realtor. She was trying to list the house. My collateral. She had no clue the deed came with restrictions. The sale collapsed within 48 hours. Then came the final insult. Lorraine, my mother, invited me to a family dinner. Said it was to talk things out. I texted back, sure. I'll bring dessert. What I was really bringing? Ownership. And a notary parked outside in a black sedan, engine running, ready to witness signatures that actually meant something. Inside, the dining room smelled like rosemary chicken. Desperation clung to the air. Lorraine had pulled out the good china. The wine glasses sparkled. Candles flickered like it was Thanksgiving, but no one was relaxed. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. Vanessa smiled too tightly, fingers twitching around her wine glass like it was the only thing holding her together. The room buzzed with unspoken tension, louder than the scrape of forks on porcelain. I waited until the dishes were cleared. Then I reached into my bag, pulled out a slim manila envelope, and set it on the table between the salt and pepper shakers. Lorraine glanced at it, trying to sound casual. What's this? Updated paperwork, I said. For the house. Vanessa didn't even flinch. Her fingers tightened around the stem of her glass. Dad opened the envelope, his lips moving as he read the first page. Lorraine's voice dropped an octave. What is this, Evelyn? Purchase documents, I replied evenly. I own the debt. Which means I own the lien. Which means you have 30 days to either pay it in full or move out. Vanessa let out a high-pitched laugh. It didn't sound human. You wouldn't. You can't. I locked eyes with her. I already did. She shoved back her chair so hard it toppled behind her. This is a betrayal. I didn't blink. No. This is exactly what you signed up for. I just did it better. The room exploded. Dad mumbled something about family. Lorraine whispered that I was being cruel. I stood, pushed in my chair, and set a foil-wrapped box on the counter. Peach cobbler, I said. The one you always said was too sweet. Then I turned to leave. Outside, the notary waited patiently in the car. Engine still running, and for the first time in months, I smiled. I had just reached the door when Vanessa hissed behind me, "You always thought you were better than us." I turned back slowly. No, I said. I thought I was useful to you. And I was. Lorraine stood with her arms crossed, her pearl necklace tight against her throat. We're your parents. We did what we had to do. To me, I said. Not for me. I walked over to the buffet, picked up the unopened folder they'd ignored like it might burn their fingers. Let me make this simple, I said. You've got 3 choices. 1. Repay the full mortgage to Granite Elm LLC. 2. Vacate the property within 30 days. Or 3. Contest it in court. Which, I promise you, will go badly. I held up a hand as Dad started to protest. This isn't a discussion, I said. It's a transaction. Vanessa lunged for the folder, like she thought she could undo everything with her bare hands. You can't do this to me. I have a career. People follow me. Then be honest with them, I said. Tell them how you forged your sister's name to bankroll your curated little life. The room went silent, the kind of silence that hums. I reached into my purse one more time, pulled out a fresh contract, and laid it flat on the table. There's a 4th option, I said, placing a single sheet on the table. Sign this voluntary transfer agreement, and I'll let you rent the guest suite at market rate. No credit checks. No co-signers. Vanessa stared at the paper like it might bite her. Lorraine's hands trembled. It was Dad who finally spoke. Why are you doing this? I met his eyes, unflinching, because you all thought I wouldn't. I let that hang in the air. You counted on my silence. On my loyalty. You gambled that I'd rather protect the family name than protect myself. I leaned in. You used my name like it was disposable. Now it's the only name on the deed. There was a single knock at the door. The notary. I opened it and nodded. He stepped inside, briefcase in hand, calm and efficient like he was delivering mail. Lorraine looked like she might be sick. Vanessa muttered something I didn't bother to catch as she stormed into the hallway. Dad just sat like gravity had suddenly doubled. The notary laid out the documents. Who's signing first? Silenced. No one moved. I slowly slid the papers back into the envelope and handed them back. They'll call you when they're ready, I said, but we both knew they wouldn't. Not yet. I turned and walked out, my heels hitting the hardwood like a gavel. The next morning, I sent a single email. Subject line: Final filing. Granite Elm LLC attachments, foreclosure notice, proof of ownership transfer, notarized statements, audio recordings. Within 24 hours, Henry forwarded me confirmation from the county office. The lien was transferred in full to me. No loopholes. No appeals. No more pretending. Later that week, a local journalist called. Ms. Hartley, your case is being referenced in a seminar about fraudulent real estate filings. Would you be open to an interview? I declined. This wasn't a public battle. It was a surgical strike, the kind of justice that doesn't need applause. Vanessa, meanwhile, posted a vague Instagram story, something about betrayal, about legacy, about people who never understood family. She tagged no one. But the message was loud and irrelevant. I didn't respond. I didn't explain. I just kept everything, PDFs, voice memos, screen recordings, in a password-protected folder titled Insurance. When Lorraine tried to guilt me by email, I replied with a single line. You taught me how to be quiet. I just learned how to make it permanent. The truth, I didn't ruin them. I let them self-destruct. All I did was build a paper trail and let them follow it to their own end point. 3 weeks later, the house was emptied, and no one fought the eviction. No one contested the final notice. They just disappeared. Vanessa moved to a rental 2 towns over. Lorraine went quiet. Dad never called, and I didn't chase them. Instead, I called Henry. I want to rename the trust, I told him. From that day forward, Granite Elm LLC would operate under a new name. The Lena Hartley Foundation, a quiet tribute to the woman I once was, and the legacy I built on my own terms. I named it after my grandmother, the one my mother erased from family photos. The one who taught me how to balance a checkbook and hide emergency cash in her bra, the one they never spoke of because she refused to be obedient. Now, every dollar of rental income from that house would go into a scholarship fund for first-generation women in finance. Evelyn Hartley, the dependable one, the boring sister. The woman they thought would never fight back had just turned their betrayal into a tax-deductible legacy. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't spite. It was reallocation. They took my signature and treated it like nothing. I turned that nothing into equity in both property and principal. And as I locked the front door one final time, I didn't feel victorious. I felt balanced, like a ledger closed without debt. There was no celebration, no champagne, no announcement on social media. Just a quiet move into a smaller home in a quiet neighborhood. A fixer-upper. Nothing fancy, just mine. I planted basil on the windowsill, started taking long walks before dinner. I read contracts for fun. And I finally slept through the night. One day, while cleaning out old boxes, I found a birthday card from 5 years. AGO'd and signed. No message, just a generic Hallmark phrase about being proud of who you've become. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was fitting. That's how they operated. Surface love, silent sabotage. But I wasn't angry anymore. I'd outgrown the version of myself that needed their approval. The strong one isn't always the loudest. She doesn't scream or beg to be believed. She reads the fine print, knows the terms, and when the time comes, she signs her own name and walks away. I hadn't become cruel. I'd become precise, and with every quiet step forward, I left behind the old roles, the beautiful daughter, the financial fixer, the emotional shock absorber. They used to say I was too quiet, too serious. Turns out, silence was my sharpest weapon. Because when I finally spoke, it was with action, and there was no apology in it. The grass was overgrown. I stood at the edge of the yard, the one they once called Marissa's place. Now the deed said otherwise. I held a small measuring wheel in my hand, slowly walking the perimeter. Each click of the counter marked distance, but to me, it marked something else. Boundaries, the kind they never gave me. The kind I had to draw for myself. The back fence. I stopped, looked out at the field beyond, quiet, open, untouched, a symbol of everything I'd reclaimed. No. I didn't set fire to the house. I didn't throw anyone out on the street. I gave options. I gave terms. I followed the rules even when they never did, because power isn't in chaos, it's in control. They put my name on something without asking to. I asked for nothing and took back everything. In the end, it wasn't about the money. It wasn't even about the house. It was about finally choosing myself, without apology, without noise, without needing them to understand. I turned back toward the street, keys in hand. Sunlight cut low across the lawn. And in that stillness, I heard it, not forgiveness, not regret, just the sound of peace. They built that house with stolen signatures. I reclaimed it with silence and drew the property line with my own name.